harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency.
Did you get to see the way telling about the post this?
Don't forget to send in your messages.
There's a difference between picking, child, and is. The idea that is and do more with less people.
If we have a better way of addressing these issues, taking care of.
Congratulations, you've been able to sign to move right now from RB Leipzig.
You take water before your workout.
People have used that phone, you need to TikTok to those that a lot of people don't even have resources.
I'm Cecil, and this is the Medley Show on NTA.
President Buhari asks National Population Commission to return verifiable and accurate data as trial census progresses.
15 candidates contesting Osun governorship election commit to peaceful exercise.
It is not enough to simply sign the peace accord. What is more important is to abide by its letter and spirit.
Nigeria optimistic of brighter regional bloc as new ECOWAS leadership comes on board.
Hello, good morning, Nigeria. Today we shall discuss security for custodial centers.
All right, so in recent years, the Nigerian custodial centers across the country have been under attacks by unknown gunmen, thereby leading to the unlawful release of thousands of inmates, including some condemned and hardened criminals awaiting trial.
There are reports that the violent attacks on custodial centers seemed a disturbing dimension since the NSAS protest of 2020, during which some correctional facilities were destroyed in Edo and Ondo states.
Now, other correctional facilities attacks will include Bauchi, Imo, those in Kogi, Lagos, Jos, and of course the latest being the Kuje Medium Security Custodial Center here in Abuja.
Now, according to the Nigerian Correctional Services, the service suffered about 30 attacks on custodial centers from 2009 till date.
Well, those attacks, according to the authorities, usually occur in facilities with large number of awaiting trial inmates.
However, some analysts have identified structural defects, poor security features, shortage of armed personnel and weapons required to guard the facilities as some of the factors making them susceptible to attacks by criminals.
Same story, you would say, but how can the correctional facilities be protected from the attacks? And what kind of synergy is required among the security agencies for intelligence sharing? And how effective will the special security team set up by the service to secure the custodial centers be? Why are criminals now targeting correctional facilities? These are some of the questions we intend to seek answers to on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. It's a warm welcome to all of you, wherever you're watching us from. I am Claire Adilabu Abdulrazak.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Claire to also welcome you to the program, as always, live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. In line with our tradition, we shall also have our supplementary segments in the course of the program, and this is the business and newspaper review. For now, the highlights of the morning news by Musbao Dan Wahab. Good morning, Musbao.
Very good morning, Kingsley and Claire. Welcome to the news. President Muhammadu Buhari on Wednesday formally presented himself and his household in Dara to enumerators of National Population Commission (NPC) as part of the ongoing dress rehearsal for the forthcoming national head count. The president, who received the team led by the chairman of the commission, Nasir Isa Kwara, tasked them to justify the confidence of the government by returning verifiable and accurate data.
Mr. President is giving us the support to do this because Nigeria has stayed for a long time without accurate population and housing census data. So we are happy Mr. President has been giving this support, and we urge all Nigerians to give the support to the Commission and its functionaries whenever they come calling to be able to get the data that will analyze and prepare for national planning for the development of this country.
And in politics, the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress (APC), Abdullahi Adamu, is assuring the nation's Christian community agitated by the Muslim presidential ticket of the party that they have absolutely nothing to worry about, as the interest of everyone will be protected. The chairman gave the assurance while addressing journalists in Dara, Katsina State after an audience with President Muhammadu Buhari.
We appreciate that the Christians are interested in it, no doubt about it. But the fact of the matter is we are as practical as we can in this situation, and we do hope that people will see reason. Nobody is wanting to promote Christianity or Muslim ticket necessarily, but we have to face the reality of our politics in the country, and that's what exactly we are doing.
So they have nothing to fear, and
absolutely nothing to fear. Shetima is another Nigerian like me and you, and yes, we don't all have to be Muslims or all have to be Christians. It is the will of God that this time around he's going to be the vice president of the great country if we win the election, and we do hope and pray, and we are working to win the election.
15 candidates contesting the Osun State governorship election this Saturday have committed themselves to a violence-free and peaceful election before, during and after the exercise. They made their commitment in Osogbo, Osun State capital, while signing a peace accord organized by the National Peace Committee.
Enough to simply sign the peace accord. What is more important is to abide by its letter and spirit. This is the best way to show commitment.
The amount of violence that has engulfed our nation, for me, is a fundamental threat to our democracy. And those who run the system must demonstrate commitment, capacity to arrest this threat.
And away from local politics, Nigeria is optimistic about the new turnaround in the ECOWAS administration, hoping that the challenges of increased restiveness, political upheavals in some parts of the region will be addressed and better economic progression realized. In a message to the ECOWAS community, President Muhammadu Buhari believes that the future of the bloc in global affairs is bright in view of the resources and resilience typifying the member nations.
I renew our commitment to work diligently for the welfare of our community. At the same time, I call upon you to continue to support ECOWAS by ensuring the full payment of the community levy and the full implementation of ECOWAS protocols.
Emir of Dara Umar Farouk Umar has called on President Muhammadu Buhari to continue to be patient, tolerant and focused on his genuine efforts at achieving a greater Nigeria. The Emir, who received a Nigerian leader at his palace, said that posterity will judge him right. Just, some petrol stations in Abuja and its environs are selling fuel to motorists at the price of 185 naira per litre and above. Many now are asking if this price boldly on display is the new pump price of petrol.
This 184 is not even the issue. Will there be fuel? Because I have to drive I left airport to this place just to buy fuel. Other filling station is still locked. So if this 184 will actually create way for all the other filling stations to have fuel, so it's better because we know it will never go down.
Bayelsa State Government also donated additional 28 operational vehicles to the State Police Command. Governor Doye Diri, who made the presentation, urged security operatives to effect the release of former Commissioner for Special Duties, Mike Ogiasa, who has been kidnapped for about a month ago.
Used to terrorize and intimidate your brother and your own sisters. And I like to appeal to us as Bayelsans.
And that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll return in just a moment after this break with Claire and Kingsley. Stay with us.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every morning is one day closer to your ambition. So, make every morning count. Cup after cup, morning after morning. Start strong, finish strong. Nescafe.
As the world advances, Glorious Vision University Ogwa, Edo State is poised to deliver world-class education rooted in strong academic traditions. In the colleges of law, basic and applied sciences, humanities, management and social sciences, Glorious Vision University is building the next generation of leaders. Hurry now for 2022-2023 undergraduate and postgraduate admissions into any of our NUC fully accredited programs. Secure admission today in one of the fastest growing private universities in Africa. Also note that the university runs diploma, GPED, part-time and tuition-free programs in all colleges. For more information, visit www.sau.edu.ng or call 0705 079 1226. Glorious Vision University, the nurture for discipline and excellence.
Motlalo, Nigeria are the 9th champions in this competition.
The 12th edition of the Africa Women's Cup of Nations is here with 12 teams including reigning champions and 9-time winners, Super Falcons of Nigeria, all in contention from July 2 to 23 in Rabat, Morocco. You can catch all the actions live on the NTA Network Service and NTA Sports 24, Channel 270 on StarTimes, 434 on StarSat and 731 on Free TV. Come, join us to promote another championship run by the Super Falcons. For your advert placement, please call Hawa on 0803 312 1022. Africa Women's Cup of Nations, Rabat 2022. Game on!
This is Good Morning Nigeria Live on the network service of the NTA. Time to take a look at business stories now, and OPEC is saying that Nigeria's crude oil production increased to an average of 1.238 million barrels per day, and that was in June 2022. For details of this and more, here is Alika Okwanachi Arwa.
OPEC made this known in its oil market report for July 2022. The report said the figure showed an increase of 5,000 barrels per day when compared to 1.233 million barrels per day produced averagely in the month of May 2022. The report said despite the improvement in fossil fuel prices, the short-term economic outlook for Nigeria was clouded by high inflation, which had reduced private sector optimism and weakened consumer spending. In taking a look at Wednesday tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, Alika Okwanachi Arwa.
Thank you very much, Alika, for the business package. Up next for us is newspaper review.
All right, and here is Bayo at Toyobe to do the needful. Good morning, Bayo. Good to see you.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, we have the leadership newspaper to begin with, and stories, of course, are on crude oil, and the price of petroleum products, as well as politics. Now, price adjustment will end fuel scarcity. That's according to marketers. Price adjustment will end fuel scarcity. That's claimed by marketers. United Kingdom, Nigeria bound Kemi among top 6 contenders for Boris Johnson's job. That's to say, to become the next Prime Minister of Britain. Uzodiman's $783,084 wristwatch can build state-of-the-art hospital and roads. That's a report there on page 7 of the paper. Once again, Uzodiman's $783,084 wristwatch can build state-of-the-art hospital and roads. Inspector General of Police bans use of SPY number plates nationwide. IGP bans use of SPY number plates nationwide. Police arrests fleeing Kuje prison escapee in Ogun. Muslim ticket. You have nothing to fear. APC assures Christians. It's an act of God, Adamu. Ignore religion, vote competence, Akeredolu tells Nigerians. Tinubu's wife will be unofficial Christian VP, says Masari. Atiku and VP governors for Osun mega rally today. Details of that on page 17. Claire.
Quite interesting stories you have, Kingsley. Al Jazeera has that lead story. For 8 hours to Osun Guba, Oyetola Adeleke ordered signed peace deal, and the riders INEC pledges transparency. IPAC cautions against intimidation, violence, while police on red alert. And there are other stories trending. Just a bit down the picture story. Power generation struggles at 4,000 megawatts amid huge demand. Power generation struggles at 4,000 megawatts amid huge demand. Now, Lagos Assembly debunks secret passage of Sharia bill. Lagos Assembly debunks secret passage of Sharia bill. And just let me return to the picture story. And that's, of course, Katsina State Governor Aminu Masuri, President Muhammad Buhari, Chairman National Population Commission, all, of course, during the trial census exercise by the NPC in Dara, Katsina State, and that was yesterday. Other stories trending just at the right-hand column by your left. I'm not leaving anything to inherit. That's attributed to President Buhari. It's on page 9. Banks spend 6.9 billion on welfare packages for CEOs and MDs. Banks spend 6.9 billion naira on welfare packages for CEOs and MDs. Now, 2023, Kwankwaso Shoret's names missing on the INEC portal, and Pope makes first women appointment to Bishop's Advisory Committee. NAMI urges contribution to tax development. And I'm looking at other stories from The Nation. I'll just start from above the nameplate. Dangote, only African on Bloomberg's top 100 rich list. Dangote, only African on Bloomberg's top 100 rich list. It's on page 8. And 448 jostling for 28 governorship seats. And the NNPPAAC yet to send list. Details of that you can read up on page 5. COVID-19 cases rise sharply in July. And Buhari, I'm leaving no inheritance for my children. I'm leaving no inheritance for my children, page 5. Now, Osun 2022. Oyetola Adeleke ordered signed peace accord. Peter Obi campaigns for last one in Oshogbo. Islamic group ex-students back Ogunyebi. Now, governors, Muslim ticket not against Christian. There are riders to that effect. And again, you see that picture story. Just also the president, of course, giving his vitals during the trial census by NPC in Dara, Katsina State yesterday. You fixed lecturers' wages unilaterally. Government tells ASU. You fixed lecturers' wages unilaterally. Government tells ASU. Proposal will cost government 1.2 trillion naira. No agreement yet on the table. Now, 165 petrol pump price no longer realistic, say marketers. Bayo, we have a long list.
Yes, let's start with what is happening. 13 political parties yesterday in Osun signed and committed to peace before, during, and after the Osun governorship election coming up on Saturday. Speaking at the ceremony, one of the persons in charge of midwifing under the auspices of the National Peace Committee, the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto, Matthew Kuka, urged political parties to work towards peace. He stressed that Nigeria is in their need of peaceful environment, and political actors need to be encouraged to think towards peace, adding that violence has been one of the main setback for the nation, and Nigerians need peace so that democracy can thrive. Also at the ceremony, the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, assured that the commission has taken steps to ensure that the election on Saturday will be free, fair, and credible, and enjoined participants to abide by the peace accord. The Inspector General of Police was represented by DIG Johnson Kukuma, and he promised that Saturday's election will witness improved security far better than what was witnessed in Ekiti. And on the issue of the same-faith presidential and running mate, the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria says that the decision to fly same-faith presidential and running mate for 2023 election by a political party is unacceptable. The Custodial State Chairman, Apostle Emmanuel Bako, says that this new trend of fielding flag bearers of same faith is not consistent with the federal system of our country. It is not only disregarding our heterogeneous nature, but has also has the potential to polarize the nation. Meanwhile, Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State has appealed to Nigerians to ignore the issue of religion, but vote for competent candidates that will work to deliver results. The governor says Muslim ticket has nothing to do with the performance. He said, let's vote for someone that can do something and work and stop because the buck stops at the table of the president. He says the president you are voting for is the one in charge. He takes all decisions, and therefore whether Muslim or not, or Christian, the concern should be competence. And he emphasized that we in the Southwest fought for this, for the candidate to come to the South, and religion should not be a deciding factor. Now, on the issue of the escapee from Kuje, the Ogun State Police Command in its vigilance got intelligence and captured one Yakubu Abdulmumini who had escaped from the Kuje prison. He was captured at Sango Ota. This is why it is good to say, when you see something, say something. Citizens saw something and they helped in providing the credible evidence. And upon interview, the escapee confessed that yes, he was actually convicted by a high court in Kogi for conspiracy and culpable homicide, and he was being held in Kuje prison. Meanwhile, our Super Falcons have qualified for the quarterfinal, and today we're playing the Lionesses of Cameroon to qualify for a semi-final berth. A former Super Eagles player and Olympic medalist has advised the Super Eagles not to be intimidated by the bully tactics of the Cameroonian players, because they are very physical in the approach. He says they should be able to hold their own against the Lioness of Cameroon. And indeed, the last time the Lioness played, we played them in Cameroon, in their own den, the Lionesses' den, and we were able to beat them 2-1.
What are you trying to calm me down? Are you trying to?
Are you alarmed?
Very quickly, Bayo, two stories that are of interest to me. Happily, you've already touched on the arrest of another escapee in Ogun State, and it is important that it is information from citizens that have led to most of these rearrests.
Yes.
With the exception perhaps of the Boko Haram inmate who was picked up at Area 1 Motor Park here in Abuja. That was done by the NDLEA. They should be commended for that, because they caught him with 3 wraps of Indian hemp. So he had quickly tried to recharge himself while seeking to board the vehicle to go to Maiduguri. So it's important, as you indicated, see something, say something, report to the authorities, and once there are suspicious persons or suspicious movements around your location, let the authorities know. Pretty good. The second point has to do with what President Muhammadu Buhari said about not leaving any inheritance for his children. I think sometimes that story could be misunderstood because he was talking about saying that the greatest legacy he's giving to his children is education, and that he had put them on notice that everyone must be educated. But more importantly, from the details of the story on page 6 of the leadership newspaper, is that, and I quote, says, my focus has always been on training the children to be relevant wherever they find themselves. I told my children, particularly the girls, that they can only get married after getting the first degree. You cannot get a first degree before age 20. So, if the president has taken this route, it should be one that should be emulated by others, so that the incidents of childhood marriages can be considerably minimized. And let's face it, an educated woman is an asset not just to the family, but to the community and ultimately to the nation.
Yes, you educate a woman, you educate a
nation. You educate a nation. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. So if a woman is properly educated and she's strong and firm, she will of course be a good. I mean, I'm not diminishing the role of women in other fields. Be a good homemaker, raise children properly, of course, along with the husband, and then be able to also participate in the running of any business, in the running of any office. Because by the time you start having children at age 13, age 14, 15, I mean, what time are you then going to have to grow?
And I believe you both have said it also, and I want to appreciate you. So I wouldn't say anything other than just to be a bit cynical about emulating the president. Nigerians will not emulate such things. I'm telling you, they only tell you Kingsley. I mean, it's the president's prerogative. But again, that's very fundamental.
Yes, it's very critical and it has impact. The 3 quick issues.
Sorry,
one about marketers and the petrol.
Marketers, and that's a lingering one. It looks like a point of blackmail now.
Yes,
that this year had been chaotic in terms of fuel supplies, at least for us here in the Federal Capital Territory and in some parts of the country. You recall we started off with the so-called off-spec petrol that came in. A number of vehicles were damaged, and we all incurred cost in that regard. They have hazard supplies. That's one. I'm sure we can get into that. The one I'm also concerned about has to do with the directive by the Inspector General of Police banning the use of SPY number plates, the supernumerary that you used to find. It's normally issued for special purposes, and individuals who have a need for it can apply, and there are rigorous procedures. But it has become a status symbol.
And it's abused.
Grossly abused.
Yes.
You know, if you recall, in the up to the 80s, and I believe up to the 90s, before it was cracked, one of the most prestigious plate numbers that you had to do with the CVU. CVU, that was a government issue. CVU, Conference and Visitors Unit.
Yes.
You know, if you had that, if you were a VIP and you came into town and they used the CVU to convey you, in a sense you had immunity, even from traffic offences and so on and so forth. But CVUs have been scrapped; they're no longer part of the government fleet. But SPY, I mean, you find all kinds. Sometimes there are persons, it is alleged, of questionable character, you know, we're using SPY plate numbers. But we will see how this directive will be enforced. Because we were told at the beginning of the administration of the new IG, as it was with some other IGs, withdraw all policemen on private guard duties. You have over 100,000 of them on private guard duties.
150,000.
But yeah, nobody respected that directive, and so you still have persons on private guard duties when there is crisis or conflict, people are attacking Kuje, everyone, those police officers, and of course some other security men, they are on private guard duties.
So it was because the order was withdrawn, because immediately after it was issued,
yes,
those who were benefiting from it protested.
Yes.
And they had to...
What was the basis for the protest?
Yeah.
What was the basis for the withdrawal? The rest of society doesn't deserve protection. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you issue the directive and then nobody obeys it. You talk about SPY, let us see who will obey it.
What about
marketers are saying
tinted glasses?
Tinted glasses.
Tinted glasses.
God bless you. They will issue. They will also sometimes issue.
Come to get permits.
The permit. Yeah, that's one. But they would also sometimes issue an exception to say that if it is factory made
exempted. But those that had stickers, dark stickers placed on them, in fact, the police forcefully removed them.
See, if it is factory fitted,
yes,
the requirement then should be for all vehicles coming into Nigeria being produced in Nigeria should not have tinted glasses. If they have tinted glasses, the customs should not clear them.
Yes, it doesn't meet import specification. Yes,
it doesn't meet it. So, well, if you don't grant the exception, everybody just bring it. It's tinted glasses, and then
it's factory fitted.
Factory fitted, and then you have all kinds of. Sometimes when you see some of the young men and women in those vehicles, you just say to yourself,
all right,
I mean, we are in for it. Bio.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's put our hands together, cross for the Super Eagles. I mean, Super Falcons. Super Falcons, yes. And I didn't watch the Morocco Botswana final yesterday, but Morocco was leading just a few minutes to the end of the match, and I'm most certain they won the match. All right, so Bayo, thank you. Have a good week. We'll see you tomorrow. This is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll take on our discussion.
Don't just wake up your child. Wake up the champion in them. Give them energy to help them win every day with Milo at breakfast. Milo Active Go and the natural goodness of malt, milk, and cocoa helps wake up the champion in your child. Milo.
What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Millions of Nigerians have received COVID-19 vaccine. I have taken my own. What about you? We have taken our own. What about you? I am strong and healthy. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? We are strong and healthy. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Go and get your job. The hospitals, churches, and the mosques. Go and get your job. Health centers, hurry up now. Don't be late. Go and get your job. Bye-bye, Corona. Bye-bye, Corona. This message is brought to you by the National Primary Health Care Development Agency, NPHCDA.
The Council of Our Fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every morning is one day closer to your ambition. So, make every morning count. Cup after cup, morning after morning. Start strong, finish strong. Nescafe.
Lalo, Nigeria are the 9th champions in this competition.
The 12th edition of the Africa Women's Cup of Nations is here with 12 teams including reigning champions and 9-time winners Super Falcons of Nigeria, all in contention from July 2 to 23 in Rabat, Morocco. You can catch all the actions live on the NTA Network Service and NTA Sports 24, channel 270 on StarTimes, 434 on StarSat and 731 on Free TV. Come, join us to promote another championship run by the Super Falcons. For your advert placement, please call Hawa on 0803 312 1022. Africa Women's Cup of Nations, Rabat 2022. Game on!
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now we are having a conversation on security for custodial centers, as they are now known. Otherwise, we used to call them prisons. Now, for a background to that report, let's listen to our correspondent, Muhammad Natala.
For some time now, there has been incessant attacks on custodial centers across Nigeria. From Bauchi to Shagamu, Jos to Ondo, Imo, Kogi, Lagos, and the recent one at the Kuje Custodial Center. The unknown gunmen unleashed mayhem on the facilities and unlawfully released hardened criminals being held for various criminal activities, most of them against the state. The recent attack on Kuje Custodial Center left many Nigerians wondering about the motive behind the action, which lasted for some hours. Top government functionaries, including President Muhammadu Buhari, paid an assessment visit to the facility. President Buhari expressed disappointment over the attack.
The most disappointing thing is the intelligence system. How can the terrorists or whoever they are organize themselves, have weapons, come and attack these high security facilities and get away with it?
FCT is supposed to has the seat of government, and today that seat of government is not safe. So we have to do whatever it takes to get everybody back.
The effect of our effectiveness in degrading terrorism them in the northeast is what we are witnessing. So they are scattered all over the place. As sad as it is, we must put whatever is happening in the context of the asymmetric warfare unleashed on the nation by these criminal elements, and we will rise to it. That's what I want to give to Nigerians.
Statistics show that more than 7,000 inmates escaped from custodial centers across the country since 2015, out of which about 600 escaped from Kuje custodial centers. However, scores of the escapees have been rearrested and returned to the facility, according to authorities. Reports indicate that most of the attacks are usually on the center, where there are a large number of awaiting trial inmates. So what is the motive behind the attack on custodial centers? Why are the inmates not prosecuted to decongest the custodial centers across the country? What should be done to fortify the centers, considering the fact that other hardened criminals are still being held there? These and more issues, guests will be talking about on Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, thank you, Natalia, for the package. Let me welcome to the studio our guests, all seated. First is Dr. Kabiru Adamu, Security Risk and Management Expert, who just turned golden.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Claire.
Also, we have here with us Francis Enobore, former PRO Nigerian Correctional Service. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
When you were there, it was not Correctional Service, was it? It was Nigerian prison.
Nigerian prison, now correctional.
Correctional, so he, of course, he retired as a controller of the correctional service. And by the way, just Claire, we were congratulating Dr. Kabir Adamu. Congratulations to him as well. Now, just before we got back on air, we were teasing him about the cake. And he said that he was in a hurry to get into the studios, so he missed out on the cake. So our intention was to send him back to get the cake so that we all have a bite of it. He's a regular guest on Good.
So, you will have right of reply.
He's a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. We are so delighted on this occasion. All right, we also have with us in the studios here Chidi Omeje, the publisher of Security Digest. Chidi, we're glad to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And from our Enugu Network Center, we've been joined by Dr. Uju Agobo, Executive Director, Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, PRAWA. Dr. Uju Agobo, well, you haven't changed your name, and I'm sure that's the name you were registered with, but Prisoners is maybe inmates of custodial centers. Dr. Uju Agobo, I'd like to have you on the program this morning.
Very much, I'm glad to be here.
Okay, well, of course, the immediate background to today's conversation is the assault on Kuje Medium Security Correctional Center, probably the worst of its kind in terms of attacks on, again, you pardon me if I use correctional center, custodial center, and prisons interchangeably. It's the worst of the assaults. We do know that the facility, Kotun Karfe, which is near Lokoja, had also repeatedly come under assault, but never in terms of the weaponry and the audacity of the assault on Kuje prison had previously been witnessed in our history. Let's begin with Francis Enabore, who is, of course, who was in the service. How did you receive the news of what happened at Kuje? I mean, was it that, we expected this?
Thank you very much once again. There's no doubt that the invasion of Kuje Custodial Center came to us as a huge, surprise. It was just like you said, the audacity and the weaponry that was deployed to prosecute that dastardly act. Something that nobody ever envisaged. Is the attention and the concern that that unfortunate incident generated since it happened is understandable. Going by the caliber of persons that were in custody and also got released. I think the starting point, like I used to say, is that yes, it's sad that it happened. I think I would suggest that we deploy more energy and resources and perhaps time to extract what happened. How do we stop that only incident from repeating itself? Because we still have hardened criminals behind bars all over the place. What do we do differently now to stop this incessant violation of our custodial center? I think that would be a good entry point to this important discourse.
You said you were surprised. Why?
Yes, going by the nature of the security arrangement, put on ground there.
That's like Kuje.
Yes, Kuje. If you go to Kuje, for the ordinary man, as you are approaching Kuje, you see the retinue of security operatives on ground there, from the military to the police to NSCDC to armed squad unit of the Nigerian Correctional Service to DSS and all of that. Ordinarily, you see the place as a fortress, but having it violated is, to some extent, it will come to someone as a surprise. Well, let me reframe that
perception. Yes, it came as a surprise because you see the structure, you say, okay, well, this has a semblance of a maximally secured environment. But if you study the environment further and you juxtapose it with what you see in other climes, a situation where you have a custodial facility that is housing highly prized individuals, there are features that were obviously absent. In other climes, you have double perimeter fence. The first perimeter fence is to delay. Remember the basis of security management. You talk about detection, you talk about deterrence, talk about delay, talk about denial before you talk about defense. We don't have that in Kuje. What that portends is that whoever is coming to violate the environment will not have the buffer area that will enable those on guard duty to profile whoever is violating the sanctity of the environment. It's not there. So it calls for concern. That's why I'm saying as we progress, we may be able to express certain things that we need to put in place to stop further violation.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Francis. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. I'd like us to also go to Dr. Uju Agomo in our Enugu Network Center. Of course, you have visitations to our correctional facilities, and you'll be in and out in terms of seeing the inmates of those facilities and the structures of the facilities and the conditions under which the inmates live and then work in there temporarily for whatever reasons. In your opinion, what has made our correctional facilities so vulnerable to incessant attacks, of course, which has been highlighted by the Kuje prison assault?
Okay, some bits of what you said cut off, but let me first say that I am not surprised. I am not surprised because, as we know, if the prison is a reflection of what happens in the wider community. I am not surprised because the clear provisions of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019 that should help us forestall what happened in Kuje and other places have not been put in place. Section 28 of that act clearly explains the things that need to happen, starting from every maximum security facility and indeed every facility harboring high-risk offenders. Francis actually mentioned the issue of double parameter wards. It's there in the law. There are scanners, there's so many things put in there, but it hasn't been implemented. And please let me also use this opportunity to plead and plead again. We need to ensure that all maximum security facilities in this country comply with the provisions of Section 28 of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019. We also need to ensure that the provisions of Section 12, subsection 4 to 12 of the Nigerian Correctional Service is ASAP immediately embarked upon. And what does that provision say? That every facility that has exceeded its designated capacity should immediately deal with that by setting off what is called the early warning signals. Letters to the Chief Judge, the Attorney General of the States, Prerogative of Mercy Committee of the State, Justice Reform Team of the States, so that that number is reduced. Again, in the same light, I am pleading that the provisions of Part 2 of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019, which is about the implementation of non-custodial measures, happens immediately so that those persons who are not high risk are removed from that facility. So that the facility will be adequate for the proper rehabilitation taking place, which is not really happening. So there's a need for funding. And in the introductory comment, it was mentioned that all the places, and indeed you are correct, all the places that they have been attacked have been places that we have a high number of persons who have not been convicted. 70%, over 70% of those who are in our custody across the country have not been convicted. And something has to happen. I said it before, but let me say it again. As a nation now, if this be the only thing coming out of Kuje for us, Kuje attack for us, now as a nation, we need to declare a state of emergency in terms of justice, security sector reform. And I mean now. And again, this perhaps may have flagged the need, because oftentimes people do not see corrections as that important. But now they can understand. You can't do anything in terms of security and justice if you are not also ensuring that the Nigerian Correctional Service and indeed all correctional activities are actually taken care of in terms of proper logistics, proper fortification. So I say I am not surprised, but I also think that we need to do more than we are doing now as a nation.
Thank you, Dr. Uju Agomo, for your opening remarks. We're back to our studio, and let me bring in Dr. Kabiru Adamo here. We're talking about, we've talked about the structural defects and the need, of course, for, more fortification of the structures. That way, whoever, tries to gain entrance, of course, will get some form of, restriction. But let's look at the perpetrators of the attack and what is the motivation. As we've noticed, most of the correctional or custodial centers house hardened criminals, terrorists, and other those on remand purposes and all that. What is actually the driving factor? Is it to an affront on our security architecture? Are we being attacked externally? What is it?
Thank you, Claire. Let me start by, first of all, commending your station, riding on what Dr. Uju said. This is a matter that requires national attention. By the very nature of national security, the essence of having a custodial center or a prison is fundamental to the achievement of the objectives of any national security. The society has decided that there are certain persons who should not be part of the society for a lot of reasons. They may have committed offenses, they are suspects, and the essence of that custodial center is to keep them until such a time that there is a determination for them to return back to society. Now, unfortunately, from when NSAS happened up until now, we have documented at least, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, and this is very conservative, at least 6,000 of such inmates that have been released to society. Among those 6,000, there are hardened criminals, there are terrorist suspects, there are individuals that have committed atrocities, including gender-based violence. Name them. They should not be part of our society and are now out of our society. So how do we intend to achieve the objectives of our national security when we cannot keep such individuals within the custodial center that we have designated in the first place as part of that security architecture? So I want to start on that foundation, riding on what Dr. Uju said. It's absolutely important, and I'm happy that the last National Security Council meeting actually deliberated on that, and we've been told that a committee has been set up to investigate particularly the Kuje incident. Now, before then, we are aware that especially the Ministry of Interior under the then General Dambazo had set up a committee that had gone round all the custodial prisons, custodial centers that we had at that time. And I'm aware that that committee made far-reaching recommendations. So we do have at least some basis with which to begin our reform. Apart from the laws and then the reports of these committees, there are several other postulations, reports, presentations that have been made regarding the circumstances and what we need to do about our custodial center. Now, with regards to your question, what is the motivation of the perpetrators? Number one, there are members, quote and unquote, that are in detention. So if we look at hardened criminal groups, some of them, they are, commanders, leaders have been arrested. Some of them convicted, some of them suspects. They are being held in those custodial centers. And one of the first motivation is to release them. As a commander, you had some privileges that you are no longer enjoying. And unfortunately, and I'm hoping we get to that conversation at some point, they are allowed to communicate with the outside world almost freely. This is something that we need to address. You cannot have a custodial center where you keep inmates and then you allow them to communicate with the outside world. There's no security there. Because what they study what happens in that place, they are able to even tell precisely to their membership outside how security is organized within the custodial center, where there are gaps, where there are vulnerabilities, and then those are exploited. Now, secondly, you have terror suspects. In the case of Kuje, we had over 40 of them. The part of the motivation of the attackers was to free them, and they succeeded in that. Again, there is a political angle to it. Embarrass the government, like it happened under NSAS, show that the government is incapable, as it were, of protecting such an important asset. And then sometimes there are also criminal, financially induced motivation. A criminal group, somebody who has the capability, pays them, whatever, go and free or go and conduct that certain act. So, and then again, there is a social angle to it. The grievances that exist within our society that allows sometimes the, continuation of acts like what we are discussing at the moment.
You keep mentioning NSAS. And I've also, read about some links, with NSAS. Do you think that's a direct correlation between NSAS protests and the exacerbation of jailbreaks?
Definitely. One of the key outcomes of NSAS was the direct targeting of custodial centers in the country across several locations. If I remember well, Delta, Edo, Lagos, and several other locations, they directly targeted custodial centers. Now, whether it was the actual initiators and drivers of the NSAS, or it was the so-called hoodlums that infiltrated that movement that carried it out, it's irrespective. It was a phenomenon that was documented, well documented actually, regarding the direct targeting of custodial centers. And unfortunately, there was a positive correlation. Immediately after NSAS, we saw an increase in criminal activities. Some of them, unfortunately, the perpetrators were actually identified as persons who have been freed. So again, maybe unwittingly, or perhaps it was, an intended action. Those who did that have not helped our national security, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kabuadam. Let's now bring in Chidi Omeje. What, in your opinion, does the bombardment of Kuje prison represent?
Thank you. I think it represents our inefficiency and our should I say carelessness in terms of handling serious issues as our custodial centers. It also represents the fact that by the way, we're not going to take in isolation that this particular incident from the general insecurity across the country, because it's a reflection of the totality of insecurity, banditry, terrorism, armed robbery, all manner of criminal syndicates in the prowl. So the bombardment we saw goes to show that probably a lot of things are not happening, are not in place. One would have expected a serious synergy between and among security agencies that man these custodial centers. Like you said in his opening remark, if you are entering that particular center, you will see a number of military personnel, black detectives, mobile policemen, armed custodial personnel, all of them positioned in different places. Yet they were unable to stop this kind of attack or to forestall the attack. It goes to show that there's a basic functional problem in the whole system, because it is difficult to believe that a custodial center located right in the heart of the FCT, close to the seat of power, where you have retinue of security, headquarters of security agents, military, security, intelligence and response agencies in the country. Yet we've had this back-to-back embarrassment and then culminating to this particular most grievous breach. You see, Nigerians have seen a lot, and time has come for us to sit back and have some introspection to say what we do right, how do we go about this. To me, we should go beyond going around. This is a time to prefer solutions. How do we forestall future occurrence? It had happened already. The country is thoroughly embarrassed. The government is thoroughly embarrassed. The people are confused. Society is at risk. We are emptying into the society, just like Kabir said. Hordes of hardcore terrorists and bandits, and not just the terrorists and bandits, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about also kidnappers, armed robbers, who, in the case of terrorists, they could take time to probably go to their cocoon to reactivate their sleeper cells. But these other, hardcore criminals, immediately they let loose, they begin to operate. You see what happened in the Owerri? Immediately they had that breach. Within weeks, you see a spike in insecurity across that region. So it's always a terrible thing to have, prison. But we have to understand that prison, correctional service, is at the heart of our, entire security architecture. Because every other agencies of state must submit their suspects, their whatever, the place as a holding facility. Meaning that there's a mixture of all manner of characters, and now you have a situation where there's overcrowding, a situation where the facilities are not well fortified in terms of absence of technology, in terms of weak personnel who have low motivation, absence of funding that are not quite appropriate. A lot of things are coming to play to give us this terrible situation. So I believe that just like he said also, this particular incident is going to be a serious eye-opener. It's going to give us that push to sit back to say, wait a minute, is it about time we took our correctional centers seriously? It's about time we think of how to improve on the physical security, the procedural security around the system, and everything that has to do with our centers. Because, like I said before, it is at the heart of our security architecture. Every one of them submits to it because it's like a ball. You put everything there. So the way you manage that particular ball tells you what happened. Because if it simmers out, you can expect a serious issue. So that's my first. That's my response to your question, really. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Chidi. Back again to Dr. Uju Agomo. A former, boss of the correctional center, in one of the interviews he granted, mentioned the laxity of the staff of those centers as a main issue. Why the custodial centers are easily attacked, and of course why those attacks are successful. I just like to ask, the kind of freedom that is allowed the inmates by way of phone, possession of phones, going in and out of the centers, of the custodial centers, getting information, is it consistent with the overall objectives of those correctional centers?
Thank you. First of all, let me state that the inmates have rights to be in contact with their families, their lawyers, and the outside world. What is wrong is that these need to be fully regulated and monitored. The United Nations Standard Minimum Rules for the Treatment of Prisoners clearly stipulates that this right is a right that every inmate need to be afforded, meaning they can be in touch with their families, they can be in touch with their lawyers, they can make phone calls, but these phone calls should be, like, imagine that you book in and say, I want to make a call, and as they are doing that, you are listening in, you are monitoring, you are tracking. The other point that we need to understand is that there are different categories of, or ought to be different categories of facilities that is in compliance with the degree of risk that each of these inmates portray. So, for example, for maximum inmates in the maximum security facilities and indeed high-risk inmates, the conditions that are made or ought to be available for them should be different from what you do with, say, for example, inmates in the open facilities, open camp, like in Kakuri and the rest of that. So that is a critical issue. So what we need to do is there should be no reason why we should have phones inside the cells. That's wrong. So you need to do everything necessary to make sure that that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen at all. But you have to also make sure that there is proper access for the inmate to be able to make contacts. And then you monitor, you track, and all the rest of that. Now, you spoke about how the staff, and again, behave. And I think, my first comment was that what you see in correctional facilities is a reflection of what you see in the general community. When you say that every country gets the kind of correctional service that it deserves. So the question here is, what is the package for training, for capacity building, for motivation, for providing incentive, for providing welfare, and all the rest of that for the staff? Now, so that you reduce the temptation that those staffs may be confronted with. And that's the same for everyone. And again, what are the levels of disciplines, checks and balances, monitoring in every aspect to ensure that indeed food is done? Section 2, subsection 1A of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019 clearly states that the objectives of the act is, 1, to help it to be in compliance with international human rights standards and good correctional practices. Good correctional practices. So again, I say to you, communication is a right. It's not a privilege. It's a right. But that right has to be made, as a matter of fact, through there, you can get a lot of intelligence that can help. But this needs to be well structured, structured to do the needful. Again, let me also mention, it is also wrong for us to think that everyone who is in custody are all hardened criminals. No, there are 3 categories of persons you find in custody. 1, those who are innocent. Yes, there are people who are innocent. 2, the minor offenders, the petty offenders who absolutely have no business being in custody. So you see, it's not just there. You have those who are innocent, but you also have those who are minor offenders and petty offenders who should actually be dealt with through non-custodial sanctions, which already we have in the law, but are not effectively implementing. And then, of course, the third aspect are the hardened offenders, the criminals, those hardened offenders. So, whichever category you have, especially when you talk about the hardened offenders, even if they are criminals, you also have to be careful in terms of how you process them, in terms of the kind of reformation activities, rehabilitation activities, and programming for full reintegration. Why? Because unless they die in custody, they're going to come out someday. So even if you don't like correctional service, even if you don't like the issue about inmates or ex-inmates, but for our own safety and security in the community, we must invest in that process. We must. So again, on one aspect is the issue of compliance with issues about human rights. On another aspect is the issue of ensuring that security is maintained. And on the third tripod is the whole issue of the 3 R's: reformation, rehabilitation, and reintegration, so that the whole notion of correction is put in place. So again, my answer is that we need to do what is necessary to ensure that these checks and balances are put in place so that they won't be violated.
Very much, Dr. Agomo. Well, back again to the former PRO of the Nigerian Correctional Service. You listened to the comments that the other guests have raised. I know that Dr. Kabir Adamu was the one that first threw it in to say, look, inmates have access to telephones. This, of course, wasn't the case before year 2001, before we had the GSM. But in addition to access to telephones and the right basis for that, as Dr. Agomo has also indicated, there are allegations that sometimes the prison yard is a marketplace. It's a marketplace, and that the managers of this market are the prison warders themselves. The correctional services, it is not just telephones that they have access to. they have access to hard drugs, then, and so on and so forth. And that therefore, you find that attention drifts away from the real reason why it is us and them, that is to say the inmates and then us who are supposed to be the managers, to ensure that these breaches such as we have seen lately do not occur. Let's get your response to that, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we need to clarify this issue of access to means of communication. Yes, the standard minimum rule for the treatment of prisoners, now Mandela rule, stipulates that every person in incarceration should be given the right to communicate with their loved ones, including their lawyers. But this is what we do. It does not translate to having every inmate with personal means of communication. We have established offices in all our custodial facilities where inmates that so desire to communicate with any of their loved ones to assist. And these centers are manned by welfare officers. Dedicated lines are provided for. It's not, the welfare officers are not even expected to come with their personal handsets. There are dedicated lines established for this purpose. What the inmates will do is to approach the welfare officer and then declare your interest. The person you want to call, the welfare officer will first of all place a call across to the person to establish that the person wants to speak with you. Once that one is done, then the communication can be established. As is talking, you are listening because you put it on speakerphone. And you give a condition, they must converse in the language you understand, or else you get an interpreter to be by your side. So this is the established protocol, and it's meant. This is not to say, however, that we have not had incidents of people smuggling into the center handset, sometimes even hard drugs. Of course, you would have seen severally that staff or visitors, including the so-called legal representative, coming in with hard drugs, they have been intercepted and prosecuted. In most cases, we showcase this on different platforms. So it is not a privilege that is given to people to abuse. It's strictly monitored, and where there are breaches, institutional mechanisms are also put in place to address those that are violating that process.
Are your welfare officers who monitor the calls, the conversations, are they also trained to detect when these conversations are coded?
No, if they are coded, it's us.
How would you know?
No, see,
how would they know?
Well, there are training processes. Each as a welfare officer, you are a communication expert that are injected into that process. Once you know that the conversation is going out of course, that was why I said before you establish that contact, you've called the person. Do you know so and so person? Where is he? And you be able to extract some reasonable amount of information, the background of the person they wants to establish that communication with. So if it's going out of hand,
okay. Tell us two things.
Yes.
How frequently is this right exercised? If I have a right to call my loved ones or my attorneys, I called them yesterday, then again today I want to call them. I said, look, it looks like I'm having a runny tummy. Okay, that story you told me about our auntie, what is the situation now? That is one. So how frequently is this right allowed to be exercised by the prison officer? And then you also said that there is a prompt for the call. In other words, the welfare officer first puts the call to the receiver. But there are instances where calls come directly from inmates to receivers.
That's what I'm saying now. That was why I said this is not to say that we have not had breaches. That is a situation where people smuggle in handsets into the yard. But to answer the first question, it is so infrequent that, okay, for instance, Kuje Custodial Center, where you have, as at the time the center was violated, they had 1,001 inmates there. And the lines provided may not be more than 2 or 3. So you can imagine the frequency of allowing one person to come and make repeated call. No. And before you even do the call, what do you want to say? What message do you want to pass across to this person? How is the person related to you? If it's your counsel, your legal counsel, yes, then we also get to know that person. We establish his identity. If it's your wife, your children, or after speaking with the person for 1 week, at least in the next 2 weeks, you have no cause to say you want to rush back, because whatever you need within the facility is provided. If you are sick, the hospital is there. If you need food, is there. If you need clothing, is there. So what will warrant your frequent call? So that one is not there. I want to quickly, because I'm always mindful of time. What we need to do, like I said, the facility when it was violated had a population of 1,001 inmates. Guess what? Those that were awaiting trial were 797. 79% awaiting trial. And this is the ugly picture you see across the country, particularly custodial centers established in urban centers. So we need to rejig our trial process, our court trial process. And I also want to let you know that most of these people that are awaiting trial, close to 90% of them even committed state offenses.
That's right.
So what is our state judiciary doing?
Okay, it's so surprising. We'll still come back to. I'd like to bring in Dr. Kabir Adamu, and again referencing a former, CG of Correctional Centers interview. He said what happened at is it Cotton Cafe? Yes, Cotton Cafe. He gave a vivid picture of what happened, that some of the inmates had gone out and brought in 2x4 timber, went inside their cells and started, boring holes through the walls. And while they were doing that, they were drumming and singing as if they would when one of them is being discharged and all that. So it drowned, the noise and, prevented the. Now, he said laxity is a major part on the part of the staff of the custodial centers, but that's not the case with Kuje. According to the Interior Minister, Kuje is the most fortified. If of all the centers, it had the complement of troops and all that. So, do you think this is an issue of lack of equipment or personnel? Responsive lack of response from the personnel, from the troops, from the security guys that were there, or because I don't understand.
Yeah, to a
maybe sleeping.
To a lay person, it may seem fortified, but to all of us here, and if we are speaking sincerely, it's extremely vulnerable from different prisms. From an internal perspective as well from an external perspective. The 101 on security that my co-discussant here mentioned, detecting, denying, delaying, deterrence, response, there is in each of these layers. If you pick, we can spend 1 hour speaking about the vulnerabilities that exist and that still exist, not just in Kuje, but in several other aspects. I run a consultancy, and I can tell you that as early as May, I started picking up chatter in Kuje that there were foreign, adversaries, persons, and we know that there were bandits who were attacking residents, abducting them. Now, additional persons joined those bandit groups. They were not working together with them, and that is when someone within that system, perhaps within the correctional services, perhaps within other security organizations, should have picked up that intelligence and say, look, there is a critical infrastructure there within Kuje. What is the level of protection, the security posture of that infrastructure? Now let me give you a scenario, and this is something that happens across the country. You have 100 persons coming on motorbikes, each of them with the most basic of firepower that they come with is an AK-47. with 2 magazines, 60 bullets in those 2 magazines. Now, assuming and going by the statement, with due respect to the Minister of Interior, that what we had in that place is a protection of 100 persons, and I know that they were not even up to that, up to 100 persons. Now juxtapose that with the adversary coming on 100 bikes with 100 AK-47s, each of them with 2 magazines. What do you think would happen for a firefight that lasted 2 hours?
But Kabiru, assuming again 100 or 300, whatever the number may be, coming to a place like Kuje in the FCT and not a single intelligence.
So again, that's why I told you to a lay person it may seem like that. I started my response to you by mentioning the 4 layers of security, or 5 layers depending on what you want to go with, and I just give you the example of one. There was intelligence. I'm sorry to say, there was intelligence. If I, as a private practitioner, had picked up that intelligence, I'm almost certain that the government public security department had picked up that intelligence. What they did with that intelligence is totally different. And I'm hoping that the committee that is investigating this matter would look into that issue. Was intelligence picked? Who was that intelligence shared with? What responses were put in place as a result of that intelligence? The point we made earlier on around communication within the correctional services, it's very easy for an inmate who already is talking to his partners outside to give a vivid description of the security arrangement within the custodial center. Now already he's communicating with outside. They know that, let's say there are 70 armed persons within and outside the security. So they are coming, they come with perhaps, like we noted one between 100 and 200. So again, and this is why I'm just trying to make the point that our correctional services are vulnerable. They are vulnerable not just because of the external factors which we have discussed, the threat factors who are coming to attack, but also because of internal factors within them. And perhaps we can discuss around physical security. Earlier, and I think it was Dr. Uju that mentioned it, there are provisions within the 2021 Act that shows clearly what should be. Now, none of that is being implemented, as if that is not good enough. If we go back to the example you gave in Kotonkarfe, the integrity of the structure is another issue. In certain instances, I can't remember which of them, it was the rainfall that actually washed a part of the wall that gave the opening, which the inmates took advantage. So again, as an expert, what I would do if I'm doing an assessment is to pick these 4 layers. Each one of them is a checklist. You tick, you tick, you tick. Now that has been done in the case of Kuje. And it was interesting, the outcome. Believe me, in each of the layers, the number of vulnerabilities identified, I'm sorry to say, probably none of us will be able to sleep based on the outcome of that assessment. So again, with due respect to the Honorable Minister, our correctional services are vulnerable.
Well, Dr. Kabir, thank you. I mean, so we will not be able to sleep. I mean, you'll get, since the Kuje prison assault, people will be calling you, say, well, we hope you are okay, we hope you are all right. I mean, we hear that these criminal elements have been let loose in the city and in the suburbs. That's the point. But Chidio Major, I would like us to talk about something. Look, our correctional facilities or prisons, as they were, they are not new institutions. They are not new facilities. They have been there. And when we say, oh, the perimeter walls are not available, this one is not available, this one is not there, ordinarily, from a management point of view, the question that arises is, what is it that the correctional service itself has been doing? Do you just wake up and go to work every morning and say, the wall is not good, so be it? I mean, I just keep asking myself, I mean, if you run a business, I'm not saying that a prison is a business, but if you manage a facility, are you going to say, oh, this is another, if the facility is vulnerable, and you yourself, you are working there, you become part of that vulnerability. It appears that nothing has been done. Okay, during one of the visitations, I think it was the president himself mentioned that, the Senate president also mentioned it, there is a watchtower and apparently inadequate and probably outdated. No CCTV. Does any person need to tell you in this day and age that you need to have CCTV all over the place? Just by watching television and watching documentaries, you see how modern prison facilities are run. So what, in your opinion, is the mentality of the managers of these services?
The mentality of the managers of this facility we're talking about is the same mentality we have across board. Now, I don't want to pin this matter on the managers of the correctional facilities. We have government in place. By the way, we've had prison breaks in the past, and I'm sure we can split committee panels to study what happened and bring reports. I think it's about time for the NSA, for instance, to review those reports to see where there are lessons to be learned. Now, of course, like you rightly said, our prisons are mostly medieval. We don't have prisons that we can compare to any other clime. We watch films and we see that in some other countries, actually, even in Africa, those who manage our prisons are well taken care of, are well trained, are well motivated, are well equipped. How come we're not able to? The thing is, we in the pec order of all the security and response agencies, you see that the prisons almost are at the base. Meanwhile, they ought to play a much more critical role. But you see, it's always easier for us to look from afar and see and be able to see what are the managers doing. But the managers also have people who supervise them. And we have Ministry of Internal Affairs. We have the Office of the NSA. We have, of course, the President. These are institutions that know exactly the essence of prison as an instrument in the whole security architecture, the importance of it. Yet we are able to mainstream technology in all of this. We are able to put, like I said, common CCTV. One would have been expected that we have to have drones to be able to pick in intelligence. We have Cable Toilet, we have a huge complement of security, different security forces. How come that this is easy to compromise? So the point is, we are not paying attention to our prisons. We are not seeing it as important. It's only when this kind of thing happens that we begin to discuss it. When was the last time we sat down to talk about Nigerian prisons, Nigerian correctional services? No, nobody remembers them. It's only when we have this kind of compromise. So we have prisons. Meanwhile, it is the same prison that you have, that there's actually a potential for breach of security in the country. Now you can imagine what's happening. You can imagine what that particular number. You said 40, but what I read was about 63. Hardcore terrorists getting loose. Can you picture in your mind what they're up to right now? Are they trying to activate their sleeper cells across the cities or across the region or across the country? Have they gone back to northeast to fortify their members, or have they gone to northwest, or have they gone to north south, or any of the forests to constitute security problem? So these are the issues. So my question is, how come we only remember correctional service when we have this problem? Why are we not proactive if we understand that prisons, aka correctional custodial service, are important in our security?
Chidi, thank you. Let's just put this discussion on hold. And then the last question again, when we come back, we'll be asking is again, has government, federal government, state governments paid adequate attention in terms of budgeting, to deal with capital infrastructure, the renovation we're talking about at those correctional centers? Of course, that will be when we come back from this break. Don't go away.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement. terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
COVID-19, that is the black swan of the century, has actually hit the whole world very hard, even the strongest of economies, and Nigeria was not spared. But due to the proactive stance and steps that the president has taken, we've been able to come out quickly. The president has consistently said we must invest in infrastructure. Even as we're investing in human capital, that we must invest in infrastructure, because at the end of the day, that is what will bring about a sustainable economic growth. So the president has given us our directive. He has said you must make sure you pay salaries and pay pensions, but you also make sure that the critical projects of roads, railway, airports, bridges, major infrastructure that are meant to drive the growth of the economy, that we consistently invest in them, even if we have to continue to borrow to do so.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every morning is one day closer to your ambition. So, make every morning count. Cup after cup, morning after morning. Start strong, finish strong. Nescafe.
Motlalo, Nigeria are the 9th champions in this competition.
The 12th edition of the Africa Women's Cup of Nations is here with 12 teams including reigning champions and 9-time winners, Super Falcons of Nigeria, all in contention from July 2 to 23 in Rabat, Morocco. You can catch all the actions live on the NTA Network Service and NTA Sports 24, Channel 270 on StarTimes, 434 on StarSat and 731 on Free TV. Come, join us to promote another championship run by the Super Falcons. For your advert placement, please call Hawa on 0803 312 1022. Africa Women's Cup of Nations, Rabat 2022. Game on!
All right, welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we are looking at, solution to the incessant jailbreaks in Nigeria. Before we went on break, I talked about what government was doing, in its own part to fund, the centers. And, Mr. Nobero, just before we bring in Dr. Agomo, I had on one of the programs here a former Controller General of this centers, and he spoke glowingly about the reformations he undertook during his tenure, and I'm talking about Jafaru Ahmed. The infrastructural turnaround he was able to bring to the centers, the vehicles he procured and distributed nationwide to effect, transfer of inmates so that the centers can the centers can be decongested. He also talked about a lot of things he did. And if you look at the budgetary allocation that this government has made from 2015 till now, you can't say that this government hasn't tried to fund the custodial centers.
Yes, thank you very much. There's no doubt that in fairness to the present government, this is about the only time we've had significant attention, interest, intervention from the federal government to improve the lot of custodial centers in Nigeria. Recall that we have always had cause to say, look, our structures are medieval, like one of the panelists rightly put it. Most of them were inherited from colonial masters and all of that. What happened during the administration of the immediate past Controller General of Correction, Jafar Ahmed, was that there was a kind of risk and need assessment of the custodial centers we have across the country. These things were compiled, and the then Minister of Interior, General Dabaza, made it possible for a direct presentation by the Controller General to the National Economic Executive Council. Right there and then, vivid pictures were presented of each of those locations we have in the country. So that was, perhaps I want to believe, what further motivated the government to, increase the budgetary allocation to the service. And what did that translate to? We were able to intervene structurally across board, offices, prisoners association cells, and then we came up with the concept of 3,000 ultramodern custodial centers built to accommodate the present security challenges facing the country. We have one in Janguza in Kano State. That one is close to 95% completion. Anywhere from now, I'm sure it will be commissioned and put to use. We have another one coming up in Karishi, here in the Federal Capital Territory. We have another one in Bori, in River State, and ditto other 3 geopolitical zones, waiting to take off. So the idea was to activate the kind of a structural integrity that will enable the service contain at the VUs, that is the violent extremist offenders we have. Closely related to that is the passage of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act 2019. Recall that bill for 12 years we were moving back and forth. But it was this administration that had the boldness to pass that bill. And what do we harvest from that bill? A lot. The custodial management, the reformation and rehabilitation of inmates, and if we want to talk about the present security issue that is facing us, Section 9, subsection 3 in that act clearly spells out how to establish buffer area. I keep saying this because, like I said at the beginning, we still have hardened criminals in our custody. And Dr. Kabir alluded to the fact that most of our custodial centers, as they are presently constituted, still remain vulnerable. What do? We need to immediately expedite the construction of those 3,000 capacity ultramodern custodial centers. Number one. Then number two, we need to relocate custodial centers that have been eaten up by urbanization. If you go to, I don't want to mention all over the country, you see most of our custodial centers are literally in Market Square. How do you operate custodial centers like that and you keep adding criminals in there? Whether you have plateau of how to guide them or not, if times comes for exchange of bullet, what happens? Where do you shoot? Where do you maintain buffer area? How do you assess who is coming in? And if you talk to those that are living around those private developers, they quickly run to court to seek injunction. And I keep saying, injunction will not stop bullets, because if time comes for re-exchange of fire, because as we are gradually transiting now, men will be beefed up, high caliber military weaponry will be deployed, and when you are doing that, you may not avoid unintended casualties.
Collateral
damage will be high. So it is high time we begin to think of relocating these facilities and put them in a place or in places where they can be adequately defended.
Okay. Elaborate. Thank you very much. And also thanks for the information you provided as to new facilities that are under construction. I hope that this is not following our national mentality. We are always very good at initiating fresh projects, fresh, and then allied to that, unfortunately, as a drawback, poor maintenance culture of existing infrastructure. So, as you mentioned, these ones that are going ahead now, new one, Bori, Kano, Karachi here in Abuja, the question then arises: what would it cost to install CCTVs in existing infrastructure, existing facilities? What will it cost to at least shore up the integrity of existing facilities? It is not as if when the ones at Bori, Kano, Karachi and elsewhere in the political zones, once they are completed, then you will pull down these ones. They will still be in existence. How do you maintain these existing ones? How do you deploy technology as part of it? I think that is the issue. I mean, the question is not for you to respond to. It's a rhetorical question. I want to go over to okay, very quickly. Yes.
Okay, good. If the current projects are completed, what the advantage it will provide is that we will be able to isolate hardened criminals from these facilities that we cannot guarantee sufficiently their integrity to the new ones that are being built. That I can assure you. And then let me quickly say this. It's unfortunate that
whether hardened or not, you don't need a CCTV.
Yes.
You don't need the CCTV. I mean, just to get along. Suppose the whole idea is to say, let's not get into that. I mean, because correctional services officers are law enforcement officers. Some persons might just say, look, let's face them. We have had instances during the NSAS protest when they stormed the prisons in Benin. Two of them. One on Saple Road, which is opposite the hospital and by the High Court. The other one at Oko, and freed the inmates who were there, running into about almost 2,000. One of those inmates was reported to have gone after either the prosecutor or a prosecution witness, and they put him to sleep.
Yes, to maintain the existing structure, we have our maintenance unit that always carry out these regular maintenance of power. For the new ones, they are. I don't want to go into detail of the security features that are in the new one. I said they are tailored to withstand the current security challenges facing us. That's what I want to say.
Okay, that's fine. No, but let's not get into detail. But what we also do know, we have read about some of these things. We have also seen them in movies. This one that you earlier described, the current practice, an inmate wants to make a phone call, a welfare officer is there. Some of them, there's a glass panel. It's on visiting days that you can have a conversation. On visiting days, and then there's a speaker it's an intercom, that not a telephone that you pick up a telephone and say, how you doing now, how are things, no, this water that place they're not very far from, that's not the kind of, we're talking about a glass panel, and you use an intercom to have the communication, and then you get back into the can. Dr. Uju Agomo, again, we're getting pressed for time, but I recall we had you as a guest on Good Morning Nigeria sometime in the past, and one of the issues, of course, along with Professor Alemika, the issue here about the congestion of our prisons. I know there is a committee, I don't know whether they have concluded their assignment, headed by the former Chief Judge of the Federal Capital Territory, Honorable Justice Ishak Bello, that we're working around on issues of decongesting the prisons, but a good number of the prison facilities are populated by persons who are awaiting trial or small-time offenders. A number of them, as has also been indicated, are persons who have either committed, they are alleged to have committed state offenses or have been convicted for state offenses. Now, the issue I raised on one occasion had to do with what needs to be done to move the prisons from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. And I think it's one of the items for amendment to the Constitution. Whether that has been done, and what incentive would that be for state governments to provide their own correctional or prison facilities? I know that Akwa Ibom built one, probably a medium security prison somewhere around the Kotekmena, but there was a challenge there recently. But what can be done to expedite that so that offenders of state statutes can't go to state facilities? I mean, if I committed an offense today, for instance, a state offense, say outside of the Federal Capital Territory, where I will go to will be a federal facility.
Thank you very much. First, let me just say, because of the last comment you made when we were discussing with Francis Naboro, just to say that in terms of communication with the outside world, contact via phone is one aspect, but there is also visits. So what you were describing is about types of visits, and they do have some forms of visit. I mean, there's some challenges, but that is also another option. Maybe when we have time, we can discuss about what are the challenges and what are the gaps and what needs to be done regarding that. So apart from visits, apart from letter writing, which these days are not as often as it used to be before, there is also the issue about visits and whether these facilities have adequate space to enable those visits to take place. Now, to the question that you have asked in terms of the rule regarding the state government, and also in terms of the rule regarding the presidential committee for prison decongestion and corrections, which my Lord Justice Ishak Bello, former Chief Judge of FCT, was chairing, and I think is still chairing. My understanding is that committee is still on. And let me just still say this, that in terms of who determines who gets out of any facility, custodial facility, it rests on the judiciary. And in this time, it has to be the Chief Judge and indeed the judiciary in that state in relation to the cases that are before the courts that are within that state. Okay? But there are already mechanisms that this should make this happen. And I want to say it and state this very categorically. What we need to do, when we talk about what needs to be done, we've talked about what needs to be done in terms of security, but I think that also, if you remember, I mentioned about the issue of emergency, declaring an emergency situation for justice and security sector at the moment in Nigeria. All the judiciary arms of government across the state need to do the needful. I mean, it is sad to see the number of persons that are waiting trial. We've discussed this already before. So again, what they need to do to be help, you look at the state core element of it, you see the role of the state in terms of what the state attorney general needs to do. What are the cases that he needs to enter a nolle prosecute on, which means he says I'm no longer prosecuting. What are the cases that he needs to ensure that the due prosecution takes place? The state judiciary, who are the persons who are in custody? What needs to be done within that parameter to ensure that you do not have high number of persons awaiting trial? And I mean it, sometimes 10 years, 15 years. What are you doing? How can you be 15 years or more, you have not concluded the matter? Sometimes these people stay longer than they would have stayed even if that matter has been, the person had been sentenced. So the judiciary, they also look at the remand homes in terms of the juvenile justice. This is also something that needs to be provided by the state. As we know, there's only maybe about only 3 bosters, which is managed by the Nigerian Correctional Service across the whole country. Yeah, maybe about that. But you know that is not enough in terms of dealing with the whole notion of juvenile justice. That's why you see a lot of young offenders in the custody. That's another thing that we need to discuss. You talked about the bill. Yes, I'm aware that there is a bill in terms of pushing issue of correction to the concurrent legislative mix, so that both the state and the federal government can have a role. Can I plead that we should have an approach which I call the whole of society approach, meaning not only the state government, but also The local government, because even in terms of local government areas, in terms of the non-custodial element, look at Kwara, for example. Kwara, FCT, they are providing support to establishing non-custodial centers, working with the Nigerian Correctional Service non-custodial element. So you don't have to wait till these things are sent to the concurrent legislative list before you do something. I think that every Nigerian, every private sector, every local government area, every state government, and indeed the federal, should do the needful. And one thing that keep coming to my mind, how many people saw the persons who were marching to go and attack Kuje? How many saw it? How many said anything about it? So you see something, you say something. But part of it is that there's completely lack of confidence and trust. How do we ensure that Nigerians would trust the system? We must ensure that we begin to end back this trust of the public, both by the justice system and also the security system. Many times people are not going even to the formal sector because they are tired, they are confused, they have lost trust. Again, can I plead and plead again? As a nation, can we take this thing seriously for once? It's not a matter of committees and meetings. There is a law set up. There are no people who know what the things that needs to be done. Can we do it? How can we have Nigerian Correctional Service Act, a whole part 2 on non-custodial, and not a penny release for it? Are we for real? Are we sure of what we're doing to ourselves? And the problem is that this thing is about the security of you and I. I don't understand, and I don't understand. Please, again, I'm using this opportunity. Can we begin? There are 244 custodial centers across the country. There are about 30 of them that we have high number of overcrowding, all in cosmopolitan.
Dr. Ojuagomo, I can feel the vibration of your anger and passion, but I think we'll just keep you on hold and then return to the studio here to take the last few comments from Kabiru Adamu, and I'm just wondering, is there a way the National Assembly, can be helpful in this regard? They make laws, and some of these laws have not been, implemented, but they also oversight, those laws.
No, definitely. In essence, the custodial center is an arm of the executive, and so where there are gaps in terms of the checks and balance that are instituted within our democratic system, that gap should be corrected by the National Assembly through its 3 key functions: the legislation function, the oversight function, and then the budgetary function. So a lot of what has been identified in the course of our conversation can actually go back to the legislature. Yes, the responsibility, especially when it comes to accountability, even the executive arm of government. But where that failure, and that's what we have identified here, if I'm taking one thing out of our conversation here, is that there were failures. And that failure squarely rests on the hand of the executive arm of government, especially the Ministry of Interior, that has responsibility for the correctional services. Of course, it trickles down to even the warden, who does not do his function. But then, as the leader of that particular sector, you are responsible. Now, where that hasn't happened, the arm of government that should ensure it happens is the legislative arm of government through the 3 things that we've mentioned. So I'm hoping that going forward, this is what we should do. Of course, the judiciary too has a role, like we've clearly identified. If there are 79% of inmates within a particular custodial center waiting trial, then as you can see clearly, it's a responsibility that is shared among all the 3 arms of government.
I know that we're signing the guys now, but it's just something that probably can be done in terms of recruitment into the correctional service. Because I say this with the greatest respect to them, and this is not a joke. Where do you see some of the correctional services staff, or prison warders as we used to call them? A number of them look like lightweights. And elsewhere, in some other jurisdictions, there's some physical requirement in terms of your features, because there could be riots inside a prison, and they would target prison officers. So you look at some of them, and you're just wondering. It's just something that we can do in terms of upping the physical features requirements of some of these officers. And I've asked this question not as a joke, but also with the greatest respect to the prison officers.
So to upgrade the requirements to what weight now?
Not necessarily weight. I'm just talking about. I'm just talking about it. I mean, when you see, there are some guys you would see, and you will say, "Look, I can't mess with this water."
You from here.
Yes, we have always made representation for the recruitment of additional personnel. There's no doubt about that. But let me quickly say this: what we are, yes, the physical requirement, yes, it's always is part of the requirement that we built in our portal. And then let me quickly say this: when we all know that we are facing general insecurity across the country, and the Nigerian Correctional Service, nobody is remembering that we were able to stave off COVID-19. That no inmate, despite the nature of our constituency, that suffered COVID-19 in all the pandemic we have had in the past. So we should also look at that area of.
Okay, to go back to your question, I think probably because correctional service is no longer very attractive to Nigerians, owing to the fact that we don't pay attention to them, we don't fund them, we don't give them the work for they deserve. People would rather go to other agencies where they believe but another thing again, that's something I'm not forgetting.
No, you don't have the time for that. I'm sorry. The Inmate, Publisher of Security Digest, thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Dr. Let me appreciate Dr. Uju Agomo, Executive Director, Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, Power. Always a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you very much. And Francis Nobore, former PRO Nigerian Correctional Service. Thank you. And you look good in retirement. And Golden Dr. Kabiru Adamu, Security Risk Management Expert. He says there's rice and stew very plenty after this program. Thank you, Kabiru.
My pleasure.
Okay, that's it on Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you very much for being with us. Tomorrow is another day, and that will be Friday. I am Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak. I'll see you then.
I am Kingsley Osadolo saying, look after yourselves and have a nice day.